Yesterday on this program, we had Dr. Duke Pesta on talking about Common Core and why it is not a good system for our schools, our students. And he will be here in Fargo this Friday, 7 p.m., Kelly and Main Street, Fargo, to talk to folks. And Kirsten Basler joined us in the 4 o'clock hour, and she, of course, is the superintendent of Department of Public Instruction here in Fargo. And we ran out of time, and I didn't feel that we gave Kirsten enough time, offered her to come back on the program today, to be fair, and she's busy in meetings all day long. So joining us on the program to talk Common Core and why they feel, why the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction feels that it is good that North Dakota partakes in Common Core standards is Dale Wetzel. He's the Public Information Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. Dale, thanks for giving us time this afternoon on the Jay Thomas Show.
I'm sorry that I'm not as attractive to listen to as the superintendent, but I'll just have to do for now.
Yeah, your voice isn't quite as deep as hers, Dale.
No, nonsense, my friend.
Hey, Dale, so I'm going to kind of roll through. And yesterday when I had Kirsten on, I apologize. I was kind of stumbling. I thought we were done with the topic, and I had a ton of papers in front of me, so I couldn't get to the. I wanted to be fair and ask the same questions of her that were asked of Dr. Pesta, and had people talking in my ear. So today I've got everything in front of me ready to roll. Of course, we'll take phone calls at 293-9000 or toll-free 1-888-970-9329. And again, I ask whether you're for or against Common Core. If you have questions or comments, just be respectful of the guests. I always ask that of the listeners. I asked this to Dr. Pesta, and I'm gonna ask you, Dale. What is Common Core?
Common Core is a way to improve what is taught in North Dakota's public schools. They're standards for math and English instruction that are more difficult to accomplish, more difficult to meet than the standards that we have now. The word that's used is rigor, but I try to avoid that because it's almost become a catchphrase amongst folks that talk about Common Core, and there are such things as games of rigor bingo when we were in a Common Core Common Core forum, and educators use the word so many times it kind of gets worn out. But this is a way essentially to make our schools stronger academically. It's a way to prepare students more thoroughly for college and for the world of work, and it is a way to help them develop analytical skills that they may not be developing now under the system that we had before.
Does North Dakota, or did North Dakota, did we have to jump on this because our kids were not
Absolutely
getting...
not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
But
I mean, the reason we're doing this is because we think it's a way to improve instruction in our public schools. I mean, there are states that did not join the Common Core, and some of them, if not all of them, I haven't looked at all of them, but some of them have academic standards that they think that are superior to the Common Core or about the same, and they figured for whatever reason that it wasn't necessary for them to join. But I'm sorry, I cut you off a bit there, Jay, I think the question you were going to ask was, do we need improvement in our public schools? And we always need improvement in our public schools. And one of the troubling things about the graduates of our public schools is that a good number of them, about almost 3 in 10, need remedial instruction when they're in college. And this means that they're going to be paying more to go to college. They're not going to be getting credit for this remedial instruction, so they'll be paying money, incurring debt, not getting credit, and taking longer to graduate from college. And if we improve the instruction in high school and in elementary school, we hope to avoid the need for remediation in college, and this will be good for the students. It'll be good for the parents. It'll mean that the students will owe less money, pay less money to go to college, and it'll mean they're better prepared when they graduate from high school.
Dale, Dale Wetzel, Public Information Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, joins us on the program, 293-9000, 888-970-9329, talking about Common Core. Seems to be a real hot issue. Dale, why are parents then so adamantly against this? And it seems more and more parents are coming out against it. Is it because there are over-the-top scare tactics used when it comes to Common Core? Is it that they don't understand it? Why is it that these parents are so adamantly against Common Core?
Well, first of all, I disagree vehemently with your premise that there's a lot of parents that are against Common Core or that their numbers are growing. When I was listening to your show yesterday, I could literally identify everyone that calls in. The people who call in to complain about Common Core are a small number of people. Most of them, frankly, are homeschool parents who are not affected by Common Core at all. And it's, I think, an erroneous assumption that the legion of parents that hate Common Core is large and growing, because, frankly, if that were true, this would have been an issue in the legislature last year. It wasn't. I covered the legislature last year. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a single Common Core bill introduced. The subject never came up in the legislature, and if anything was as sensitive as the Common Core people allege, Common Core would have been the number one subject in the legislature. It wasn't. These people, I don't know what their motives are, but they are exaggerating the dissatisfaction with Common Core for their own reasons. And for this reason, I think it would be good if Duke Pesta, who's coming here tomorrow to promote, or coming to Bismarck and Fargo in part to promote his money-making venture of offering an alternative curriculum to homeschool parents, instead of, trying to pad his pockets, what he should be doing is visiting the public schools in North Dakota. He should go to a public school in Bismarck, go to a public school in Fargo, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals who he thinks are suppressing information, and ask the teachers, ask the principals, ask the parents there what they really think of Common Core. Well, and I think that the answers that he gets are going to really surprise him. I'm sure that they're not going to fit into the neat little pattern that he's already imposed upon North Dakota, and without any reason for imposing it.
I've had many teachers contact me and tell me that they just do not like Common Core. Is it because that there's going to be tougher standards, just not for the students, but the teachers as well?
Well, we took a survey at DPI, and it was an anonymous survey. You could do it on a thing called SurveyMonkey, which is an internet survey site. More than 2,000 teachers responded to this survey.
I was told that that's not true. I was told that the number of teachers that responded were 200.
No, it was more than 2,000.
Okay, all right.
It's more than 2,000 teachers. I can send you the results of the survey if you want. A majority of the teachers, in fact, most of them, said that they thought Common Core was a good thing and that it was increasing the rigor. I hate to use that word, but it was making students learn more in their classes. Common Core this is our first year of dealing with Common Core, of having it in our classroom.
Dale,
and the teacher survey was very positive toward it.
Dale, let's go back to, and I'll get to the calls here in a second. Dale, let's go back to homeschooling. How much of an effect will Common Core have on homeschooled students?
Zippity doodah.
Okay,
homeschool parents decide what curriculum they give their kids.
Okay.
It doesn't affect homeschoolers at all.
And Dr. Pesta yesterday, I believe, was saying that it will down the road. Basically, it'll make it so tough, or it will force parents to stop homeschooling their kids.
I heard his answer, and it was ludicrous. I mean, what he's saying is that homeschoolers are going to be overwhelmed by Common Core.
Yeah.
Well, if homeschoolers are delivering a good educational product to their kids, and I have no reason to believe that they're not, they've got no reason to worry about Common Core. They've got no reason to worry about state assessments. The Duke is peddling some snake oil here.
How is he making money off this?
He is part of a foundation that markets a curriculum to homeschool parents.
All right, let me get this.
And it's, I was looking, I mean, I don't really know what a reasonable price is for this sort of thing, but it's thousands of dollars a year for books and tuition and expenses, and he is part of this foundation that is selling its own curriculum to homeschool parents. And part of his marketing strategy is to try to sell parents on the idea that Common Core is bad, therefore you should homeschool your kids, and you should buy my instructional materials for homeschooling your kids.
All right, let me grab some calls here. Let's see who's up first. Jared, you are up on the Jay Thomas Show with Dale Wetzel, Public Info Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction.
I've got two questions. The first one is a comment made just a few minutes ago by your guest, where he stated that the gist of it was that he could identify the people that were calling yesterday and the questions they were asking. Well, I have kids in school. I wasn't one of them that called, and I agreed with all the questions they were asking, and I don't know anything about Common Core except what I've heard on the radio with this show yesterday and today. So the question I've got is, are you trying to belittle the audience and the people that you supposedly represent by making such comments on air?
Absolutely not. What I was trying to demonstrate was that the number of folks who are opposed to Common Core is much smaller than the Common Core detractors would have you believe. And the example that I used for this was everyone that called in on the Jay Thomas Show yesterday were people that I have heard from before and could personally identify. And I think that if this was a widespread phenomenon, that I could not identify most of the people. Instead, I could identify each and every one of them. I'm not trying to belittle them or belittle their questions, even though I've heard them quite a few times. It's just that I think it's a really small group that is trying to look big.
Okay, the second question I've got, and I'll take my question and you can transfer me off if you want. But with Common Core, I'm still not understanding the difference between that and what the system was before, the No Child Left Behind. I, as a parent, do not understand what you're trying to sell us and tell us the difference between No Child Left Behind and Common Core is. Can you simplify it and make it so I can, as a parent, can understand what you're saying? Thank you.
Great question, Jared.
Well, we do think that Common Core presents in English and math a more rigorous way for students to learn. Let's talk about what Common Core is. It is a set of standards that it's a set of standards in math and English, and this is each standard is grade specific, and it says, okay, if you're a first grader, this is what you should know by the time you finish first grade. And this is what you should know by the time you finish second grade. And sometimes in the Common Core standards, what you used to have to know in the third grade, instead you have to know it in the second grade. And there are other ways that things are changed to essentially broaden English and reading requirements for public schools to go into things like government documents, which students are going to have to read and understand in their adult lives that maybe aren't emphasized that much in school. Does that help you, sir?
Yeah, and he's gone, and it kind of, and that's what he was looking for. And it kind of makes sense. It's almost like what is happening here is we're bumping up the learning curve
yes.
a little bit earlier for these kids, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me grab, I got a ton of calls here. Let's see. Let's grab Bob in Fergus Falls. Joe, you'll be next after Bob. Bob in Fergus Falls, you're up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. What a wonderful subject. There's a reason that the public school system has such a failure rate over the last few decades. There's a reason that the homeschool movement has boomed over the last few decades. And I'll tell you, if the parents were involved in constructing this new program, they've been left out of the equation for decades, and that's why they're looking for other solutions. And attacking a man, calling it snake oil and all this, that doesn't help anybody understand what has been foisted upon the parents and public. And the homeschool faction does pay taxes. They do have a say in what goes on in their institutions, so it affects everybody. It doesn't just affect the teachers, the parents that are within the schools and such things. I just I don't know why the public school system cannot understand that it needs parental involvement on every level in order to be a success, whether you're talking about drugs, violence, school curriculum, or anything else, and I'll just hang up and listen.
Bob, appreciate the phone call. Dale, do you think that the parents are not getting enough involvement in their children's education when it comes to setting up, whether it's Common Core, No Child Left Behind, where the parents are just basically left out and, you know what, we as a government, we as leaders will decide it for you?
Well, first of all, the gentleman in North Dakota, at least, and I'm sure this is true in Minnesota too, local school officials and teachers, they encourage parental involvement in their schools. They welcome parental involvement in their schools. We, in fact, when we were developing the math and English standards that we're talking about, there was a year set aside for both educators and the public to weigh in on these standards, to comment on them, to review them. And the more parents are involved in a school system, the healthier that school system is. There is no desire amongst public school educators to shut out parents or stifle their voices. They want to encourage parents to be involved. They want to encourage them to speak up. In fact, we did a number of public announcements when the math and English standards that we're talking about, we did a number of announcements while they were being formulated, saying to the public, please review these. They are posted on our website. Please comment on them. Please tell us what you think of them. There is a new set.
What kind of response did you get, Dale, from those postings?
I'm not precisely sure as to what the number of them were, but we did get some response. I don't think, to be fair, it was a voluminous response, but we did get some, and I think that the point is we invited public participation. We didn't try to do this in secret. We didn't try to do this without the public's involvement. We invited the public's involvement. In fact, we now have, presently, we have invited public comment on a new set of science standards, and we are getting public comment about those, in part because I think that, there has been a lot of publicity about the math and English standards and Common Core, more awareness of the invitation to comment publicly on school standards in general, and so we're getting more comments about the proposed science standards that we have.
All right, let me grab another call. I got a ton of calls to get to here. Folks, I know you've been waiting a while to get on. Don't lose your spot. Let's see. Joe, thanks for hanging on. You are up on the Jay Thomas Show with Dale Wetzel. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Jay. Hey, sir. Thank you for actually having this guest on today. I'm really glad because, I'm not saying you're belittling. I think you're being passionate. I can tell you're frustrated with the misinformation out there. And so I'm going to defend you here because I agree with you. I think you kind of stole my thunder. I think that, this nanny state that we're in with federal regulations handcuffing teachers and local curriculum, don't you feel that it's a part of a bigger picture problem that we have in the school system, that we're handcuffed by the federal government, that we're handcuffed by regulations that don't fit North Dakota standards or Minnesota standards? I mean, heck, you can even see in Minnesota how much of a federal influence is screwing up their public school system. Do you think it's bigger than Common Core, like we have a bigger problem?
Well, I do believe, sir, that part of the frustration, in fact, maybe most of the frustration about Common Core is it's rooted in frustration about the federal government generally. The federal government is intrusive in ways. We have an enormous national debt. We have stories every day about, some sort of rigmarole that the federal government is promulgating. And we tend to translate that feeling to education, even though I think in the case of Common Core in North Dakota, I don't think that the shoe fits. First of all, these math and English standards were not developed by the federal government. They were developed by the nation's governors and school administrators. We also had, once the standards were developed by the governors and the school administrators and people working for them, we had approximately a year's time where North Dakota teachers and the North Dakota public had a look at them and decided that they were good. there's been a lot of talk, and Duke Pesta was one of the promulgators of this misinformation, that the federal government is bribing states to adopt these standards. Now, there is money available for states to adopt these standards, federal money, that's true. But it's also true that North Dakota didn't take any of it. And it was annoying to listen to that guy talk about federal government bribing North Dakota to accept these standards when we didn't get a dime for it.
You know, you brought the money up, and I want to bring this up because this keeps coming up. People ask me to ask you, Dale, whether or not North Dakota took money for Race to the Top, and we didn't. I believe North Dakota was in North Dakota, Alaska, and a couple other states. We didn't take any Race to the Top money, correct?
Well, we didn't apply for it, because, and the big reason was that it was intrusive.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have tried to dictate education policy in North Dakota. And if you were going to get a Race to the Top grant from the federal government, you would have had to do things in North Dakota that the legislature has refused to do. And so what is the point of applying for a Race to the Top grant when your chances of getting a Race to the Top grant are increased by taking policy positions that the state of North Dakota doesn't agree with?
Guys, I got to roll to a break. Joe, appreciate it. My phone lines, I got one open line now. That's it. I got a break. I know there's been folks that have been waiting a while to get on. Do not lose your spot when we come back. More with my guest, Dale Wetzel. He's the Public Information Officer, Department of Public Instruction, and we're talking Common Core. Again, ask that you be respectful and try to... I know you have a lot of questions, but try to keep it as brief as you can so we can get through all the calls. Dale, we could have probably started this at 2 o'clock.
Well, maybe we can do that some other time.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get to these calls because some people have been waiting quite some time. Kathy, you're up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Hi, Dale. It's Kathy.
Hello.
You know me.
Kathy O'Brien.
Yeah. Well, here's my question. Kirsten told me that the one survey was done, and she sent me the copy. So if there is truly another survey that thousands did, why haven't we received that? She told me this was it.
I do think that maybe, I don't know what you received, but I do know that the survey that the superintendent was referring to.
Well, I sent you a copy of the stats on it where 134 teachers and 4 parents.
Well, I don't know what survey you're referring to, ma'am, but
8,366 teachers in the state. So I would love
that I'm talking
to
about,
see
there were
what
more
other
than 2,000
survey was
responses.
done. But my other point to you is, although you tried to insult all of us, we have had weeks where we've had over 20,000
if I tried to insult you, I would have succeeded. I did not try to insult you.
So we are not
we have to have one person talking at a time. Dale, go ahead again. Let's have one person talking at a time. Go ahead, Dale.
I said if I had tried to insult you, I would have succeeded. I did not try to insult you.
You said we were such a small group that are trying to look at important or big, and I'm saying that was an attempt at insult, but it didn't work.
All right, Kathy, anything else?
Just one other thing.
Quickly.
You know, we keep hearing that no, we didn't take any money, but you're kind of forgetting about the $104 million that we took in the grants under the State Fiscal Stabilization Fund. So I'm tired of the lies. Okay.
Well, ma'am, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's just put it that way.
Kathy, appreciate the phone call. Steve, you're next on the Jay Thomas Show. One line open.
Well, Jay and Dale, thanks a lot for taking my call.
You bet.
And I wanted to clarify one thing that I believe Dr. Petzler was not talking about specifically the funding, to initiate the Common Core, but I think he was addressing the fact that money has been acquired from the Department of Education for the implementation of Common Core subsequent to that. And so, but I keep hearing
Steve, the gentleman you're listening to, Jay, his name is Steve Cates. He's from Bismarck. And Steve, we haven't gotten any implementation money from the federal government for Common Core, just so that we're clear about that.
Okay. Well, I don't know whose dime is it that everybody's traveling around and going to meetings and buying computers and buying retraining teachers and all that. Who's paying for that?
Well, the state is paying for that, but teacher training and going to meetings, etc., that happened well before Common Core, and it'll happen well after Common Core and after both of us are long gone.
Well, my question is about, you keep going back to these standards, but is this not actually a systemic reform? Doesn't it require new curriculum? Doesn't it require new books? Doesn't it require new technology? Aren't there teachers out being retrained to fit this? Isn't the colleges of education getting grants to align themselves? I mean, this is not just new standards. This is a complete systemic reform. Am I correct or incorrect in that?
Well, by your use of the word reform, I gather that you like this trend, which is quite nice. But do the teachers have to get extensive retraining? Do the schools have to buy new books and computers just because of Common Core? The answer is no.
That is not correct. They're buying all kinds of materials and doing all kinds of training that is specific to alignment with Common Core. To alignment with Common Core.
Schools buy new books and new materials all the time. And people undergo training, teachers undergo training, administrators undergo training all the time. There's nothing new under the sun here.
We are having a systemic, you just told me, we're training, we're buying books, we're doing all kinds of stuff. So this is not simply...
Well, that's been going on for years. This well predates Common Core. It's something that schools do.
Schools have always updated books.
This is a systemic change based on Common Core, is it not?
I beg your pardon?
This is a systemic change based on the Common Core, is it not?
No. It is. I mean, it is not a systemic change based on Common Core to have updated technology, to have new books, to have training. These things all predate Common Core, and they've been going on for as long as we have had public schools in North Dakota. Although I guess I wouldn't count buying computers in
with the Common Core. Am I correct in that? Are we having a systemic change focused in on the change of these standards? Yes or no?
No.
All right, Steve, I'm going to let you go. You asked your question multiple times, and I think Dale answered it. Dale, I'll say this. You're right. I mean, schools have always, since the beginning, schools always, would North Dakota be updating computers? Would North Dakota schools be updating books if Common Core was not here?
That's true, yes.
Okay.
They would. I mean, we have been.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's always going to happen. Let's see. Before I get to more calls, hang on, callers. Dale, if North Dakota decided to not go Common Core, where would that put North Dakota in the realm of education?
Well, that's an interesting question because there has been a lot of pressure on the superintendent to denounce Common Core and say we don't like Common Core, we want to get out of Common Core. Well, frankly, if she did that tomorrow, nothing would change. The reason for that is because the legislature has mandated all of this. The legislature mandates that the superintendent implement standards. The legislature mandates an annual student assessment, which is a long way of saying a student test, to measure the progress of students. And so if we were to decide, Jay, that we're going to get rid of Common Core, the legislature would have to step in and say, okay, what kind of standards are we going to have? What kind of and what kind of textbooks are we going to have to teach to these standards? What kind of materials are we going to have? I mean, these are all debates that we could have, and it would require a lot of time, a lot of money, and if the legislature wants to do this, I mean, it certainly is their option. But if we were to just dump Common Core, we would be, frankly, bereft. I mean, we would have to, our annual test that we use to measure the progress of students, it's called the NEAP, the NEAP. It's called another name for it is the Nation's Report Card. I mean, right now, the NEAP, the Nation's Report Card, is clicked in to the Common Core English and Math standards. And if we weren't doing that anymore, then our results of those tests would probably suffer.
All right, let me grab some more calls here. Jim, you've been waiting quite a while. You're up on the Jay Thomas Show with David Wetzel, Public Info Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, hi. So you're telling me that if we were to go to back to a classical education model, grammar, logic, rhetoric, which was used for close to 2,000 years and worked very well before all this experimental education came along, that they wouldn't be able to pass the Common Core testing? I can't.
No, I'm not saying that at all. No, sir.
Well, I think you're wrong, because knowledge is knowledge. Math is math. The mind works in a specific way, and if it's educated correctly, they can pass any test they want. And that's the way it was in the
I'm agreeing with you, sir. I agree with you. I mean, if they have a good, what you call a classical education, they can pass the Common Core test or any test that can spring from the mind of man. I agree with you.
Okay. So my next question on this, though, when you talk about this information about Common Core was out there for the public for a year. I mean, I've got 4 kids in school. The last month or so is the first time I've ever even heard about it. There's nothing been sent home with the kids about how the curriculum is changing and how that process is changing. I haven't seen anything on our West Fargo website, anything about this. So, I mean, you say it's on your website, but that's like hiding it in plain sight. How many people go to your website just to see what's going on there? Not too many people, I would say.
It wasn't just as if we plopped it on the website and did nothing with it. We advertised that the standards were being changed. We invited public comment. We did this through press releases and things such as appearances on talk shows such as this one. It isn't as if we just put these things on a website and let them lie there. We did try to publicize.
Do you think this is something where money?
I'd like to know where, because I never heard it on the radio. I never saw it in the newspaper. I mean, I don't know. It seems really weird to me.
With the amount of money we have in the state of North Dakota, Dale, why did the state not spend money to advertise this on television and radio and a newspaper?
I don't know. I mean, that decision was made under a previous superintendent, and that's fine. I mean, why was it? I don't know if it is a good expenditure of the taxpayers' money to advertise this sort of thing, but I mean, reasonable people could disagree about that.
Yeah, I would say it's very important to education.
Though, is that there were attempts to publicize the fact that the standards were being changed, and these, it wasn't done. I mean, we weren't trying to do this in secret. We want public participation.
Okay, can I say one more thing?
One more quickly, Jim. I got to get to these other calls.
Okay, you got a tough job when you got to deal with people like that, Karen. There, sir. I commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, sir. But it's it's part of what we bought into, and she's really good at it.
Jim, appreciate the phone call. All right, let's see. Stacy's been waiting a while. Stacy, out in Bismarck, you're up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. A little nervous here because, Dale, you get kind of defensive here. I'm just a concerned parent and have been researching this because of my 3 kids. And as the last caller had said, reaching out to us and letting us know what is going on. At the Chamber of Commerce meeting, they had talked about kids and used to have Ataris, and now they have iPads. And I think that, you should take that information that you gave to us and maybe get on the web and let us know, because none of us did know. So it does look like it's in secrecy. I guess my thing is it's not so much the standards, but how the standards will be driving the curriculum. And the other part of this is I, looking at brain development and the research there have you taken into consideration the curriculum and the standards that are going to be used with the early grade levels like K through 3rd, and how it falls in with brain development? I mean, are you going to be hitting a brick wall because of it?
Well, ma'am, what I do know, I can't answer your question about brain development because I'm not an expert in the subject, but I can tell you this. The people who reviewed these standards are experts in brain development. They're experts in education. They're expert teachers. And they decided that these standards in math and English were appropriate for the grade levels at which they're being introduced. And that's really the bottom line. And as far as our website, ma'am, our website is not the most user-friendly, and it is being redesigned to be more user-friendly. I mean, you have a point there. Anyone who calls in and says, your website's not very good, I mean, it could stand improvement, and we are attempting to improve it. Jay, could I also interject? You mentioned advertising.
Yes.
The Department of Public Instruction doesn't have an advertising budget, and I covered the legislature for a number of years, and I think that the legislature would not react too well if we came waltzing in the 2015 session and said, you know what, we need $100 or $200 or $300,000 for advertising. I don't think that they would welcome that, and you'd need a fair amount of money in order to make a dent in the public consciousness, and otherwise you might as well not spend the money.
The reason, Stace, appreciate the phone call. I got to roll it. The reason I bring that up is this is important. It sounds like to parents, whether they're for it or against it, and these are some pretty significant changes. And if the legislature has a problem with all the money that we have, and it's easy for me to spend their money, I'm sitting over here, sitting behind a microphone. But if this is as important as it sounds like it is, and has a big effect, then I think the state of North Dakota, the lawmakers, have a responsibility to get word out to the parents, because the parents are the ones that are paying the taxes, that are paying their salaries, that are paying for the schools, and I think that word needs to get out to as many people as possible. I'm Dale Wetzel, Public Information Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, on the program this afternoon, taking your calls. We're talking Common Core. Russ, I'm going to grab you. It says you are a principal here in North Dakota.
Yes, I am. I'm at Richardson Taylor High School.
Go ahead, Russ. You're on with Dale.
Okay, thanks. I just had a couple comments that I'd like to say, and I'll try and make it fast. One thing that I haven't heard all day today is people are calling in about getting standards. And what I want to let everybody know is we've always had standards. Even back in the 50s when teachers were teaching, they didn't just pull it out of their hat and say, okay, today I'm going to teach this. They always had standards to teach to. This Common Core is just new standards of what we should teach. It doesn't go into how we should teach it, so the teachers still get that autonomy of how they're going to teach those standards. But the standards are there as a guide. Also, the other thing is there was a caller earlier that kind of confused Common Core with No Child Left Behind. They really have nothing to do with each other. No Child Left Behind was a thing where, just as it says, we're not supposed to leave any child behind. And these standards are helping us get to that spot. Well, it's not two different, or it's not the same thing. They're two different things. The standards are helping with No Child Left Behind.
What are you hearing?
The problem is the federal government has not reauthorized No Child Left Behind. So then now we're kind of stuck in limbo, wondering what's next.
As a principal, Russ, what are you hearing from parents? You hearing good things?
Honestly, yeah. I am. Okay. I mean, I've put it out to my patrons all along that Common Core is coming. We're changing the standards and giving them information. I do think it's part of the school's responsibility to have that local control to get that out to their patrons. I don't know if it's necessarily DPI's responsibility to make sure everybody in the state knows.
Russ, appreciate the phone call. Andrew in Fargo, Jay Thomas Show.
Hey, how you doing,
good.
Jay?
Doing good.
I'd like to ask this gentleman, is his position elected?
My position?
Yes, sir.
No,
are you in an elected position?
No, he's not.
No, sir. I work for a person. Her name is Kirsten Baszler. She's the superintendent of public instruction. She is elected, but I am not elected. I'm just, a guy that comes to work here.
You're appointed. Okay. My other.
I'm hired. I'm an at-will employee. I can get fired at any time.
Okay, all right. Well, my other question, or my other point would like to be here, I'd like to point out that survey that you keep referencing, that was done after the fact of the state already accepting the Common Core. So you can speak to that all you like and say, you got all these positive remarks about it, but I think we all know what's true. So,
Andrew,
well, I think I know what's true too, sir, and the truth is, what you say about the survey coming after the implementation of Common Core, that is true. But it is also true that teachers, in the main, support these new standards. That's what we're hearing from them. In fact, they're scared to death that what they consider to be, and I agree with them, a small minority of people is going to get the superintendent to back down and toss these standards, and the teachers would really not like that idea.
Hey, Dale, I'm running. Dale, hold on, Dale. I'm running out of time. So I got a hard break. I got news. I got a ton of calls, emails. I know I've had you for an hour. Would you be willing to come back next hour and talk some more?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. We bring Dale Wetzel back, Public Information Officer with the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, the program, and Dale, so many. I didn't get to any of the emails. This definitely, and there go the phone lines already filling up. This is definitely a topic, or I guess you'd call it a topic, or I don't know what the hell you want to call it. It hits home for a lot. It hits home for a lot of people, whether they're for or against it. Dale, here's my question: when will parents? And maybe this is a question that just we can't answer it, or it can't be answered, but is there any idea when parents, whether they're for or against Common Core, will see the true effects of the system?
Well, they're seeing it now. I mean, the Common Core standards have been in effect during the school year that we're in now.
Okay.
The thing that I would advise folks is, talk to your teachers, talk to your child's teachers, talk to your principals, talk to your local school people. They are the people that know this best. Frankly, I got a lot of information about Common Core and its application, how these standards work, just from going around and talking to school teachers and school principals, particularly at the elementary grades. I mean, because it is somewhat hard to make real. I mean, I've read the Common Core standards, and frankly, when I read the Common Core standards, I thought, what is all the fuss about? There's nothing wrong with these. But when you actually get into the practice of the standards, that is when you start to see, okay, maybe there's this. A lot of the complaints have to do with how the standards are taught. They aren't with the standards themselves. And if a parent's child is having trouble, they should go to the teacher or the principal and say, look, what can you explain this to me? That is the best way to learn about these new standards. It's the way that I've tried to learn about them, and frankly, I've got a lot more learning to do. I've only had this job for 3 weeks, but I don't understand the idea that the Common Core standards are awful or that they represent some kind of revolution in education, because they don't. All they are designed to do is make sure that kids across this country are better prepared for college and better prepared for jobs when they graduate from high school if they don't want to go to college.
Let me try to slip a couple in here before we get to the weather here. And thanks for giving us all the time this afternoon, too, Dale. I do appreciate that.
No problem.
Leah in Fargo, you are up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Dale. Say,
hello.
Dale, I just heard you talking about how, if we have issues with Common Core and want to learn more, we should address our locally with our teachers and our principals. When we did that this year, it was not well received by the teacher or the principal. And in fact, most of what I found out came from doing my own research, and found out that what the principal had originally said wasn't even close. There's a lot of misinformation. People think that Common Core is a grading scale. This is coming from school officials. So my other question to you is, North Dakota was awarded $160 million in Smarter Balance testing funds. My understanding is that is and aligned with Common Core standards. So are parents allowed to see a sample of this test? It is, going to be new to the state. It's a progressive answer-based test, that's wide open for manipulation by the test creators. It kind of worries me when we get away from testing locally to bringing in tests that are created on a national level by special interest groups. Do parents have an option to see these tests since they are new to the state? And if parents can't see the tests, is there a procedure for parents to opt out?
Your question is, well, first of all, you mentioned a national test as if that's some sort of bad thing. Well, students in North Dakota have been taking a national test for many years. It's called the ACT. The ACT is necessary. It's pretty necessary if you want to go to college. And as far as the $160 million you mentioned, I mean, that's just not true. I don't know what the origin of that figure is, but we don't get $160 million or any amount of money to administer the Smarter Balanced tests. You might be referring to federal money that we receive to help low-income children and also to provide, cheaper school lunches and that sort of thing. But that has nothing to do with Common Core, as you know.
The money that I'm referring to, that's coming from the federal. That is coming from the federal website stating that North Dakota was awarded $160 million specifically for that reason. That's coming from the federal government. So you're right, but that's what they're saying. And I can send you the article, Dale, if you want to. If you want to get,
I'd like that,
a little more informed on what the money is about.
Yeah, I think that the source of your information is wrong, but I'd be glad to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, Leah, if you could send
the federal government that they're wrong. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from the Department of Education on the federal level, their website. It's online. Anyone can go out and find it. I challenge parents to start asking.
Well, see, ma'am, I think you're misinterpreting what is on the website.
I didn't take the ACT, and I got into school just fine, and that's an optional test. We're talking about a national test.
Well, no, when I said the ACT, you spoke about a national test as if it was some kind of a bad thing, and North Dakota students already take a national test. A great deal of them do. It's called the ACT.
Dale, can you hang up? Dale, can you hang out for a little bit? All right, hold on. Yeah. Darren, Brian, another Leah, and a ton of emails. And I believe one of the callers here is a teacher here in the FM area. You're all coming up. This is going to be a real quick break. Dale Wetzel, Public Information Officer with the North Dakota Department of Instruction. Q&A this afternoon. 293-9000-888-970-9329. Email talk, WDAY.com. Also, don't forget you can follow me on Facebook. All right, back to the phones here. Darren, I know you've been waiting quite a while. Brian, Leah, you're coming up as well. Darren J. Thomas Show.
Hey there. Bill Gates, George Soros, and Bill Ayers are the three top entities that have been pushing Common Core. That there alone is enough for me to not like it. But nonetheless, that is a fact. And George Soros is part of the Tides Foundation, which pushes very far left progressive ideas and indoctrination. And they just love to get into the colleges, just like Bill Ayers is. Indoctrination of our kids are number one on their list. I have found plenty of information on the Internet that shows leftist propaganda built into this. And I just want to know, am I completely off, or is this completely only about a newsstand? It has nothing to do with anything leftist.
Are you completely off? Yes, in terms of, this is some kind of ideological campaign. Let me give you one example here, sir. One of the kindergarten standards is your child should be able to count from 1 to 100 by ones and by tens. Now, how you game that to make it some kind of leftist dogma, I have no idea, in terms of teaching a kid to count.
I have an example.
Hold on a second. I want to talk a bit more. Now, in terms of Bill Gates financing this whole effort, it's true that his foundation has put a lot of money into it. But Bill Ayers has nothing to do with it. And George Soros, I'm not sure. But in any case, I don't think Bill Gates putting money into an effort to strengthen public education in North Dakota is a crime. I mean, what's wrong with it?
No, well, that's fine. I mean, you're going to the guy we all like. Somebody like Soros, though, is very, very far left, and so is our home terrorist, William Ayers.
Well, I'm not defending Bill Ayers, but I'm also saying he's got nothing to do with Common Core.
Okay, then anybody else can go look that up and see whether you're right or I'm right. We'll just leave it at that.
Darren, where are you getting that information from? Because that I have not heard that Ayers or Soros is tied to this. That I have not heard.
There's lots of bogus information that you can find on Common Core, on websites across this great Internet land of ours, and he's just been looking at some of them.
Well, I've been looking at all the top ones. You said that it's a very small percentage of people that are crying about this, but if I just type in Google the words problems with, I don't even have to finish it. The top one comes up with Common Core. So, but that alone tells me that you might
not
be
a
off
legitimate
on what
measurement,
you're
and you know it. I mean, you can make Google do anything you want in terms of what words come up. I mean, if all you're doing is Googling Common Core all day long, then Common Core is going to come up when you do searches.
In my example, in English, where they'll ask the student to circle the nouns, and the sentence would be something that would, like one of the examples was, the individual's rights are not as important as the something about the nation. You know, basically a collectivist type point of view. So it's like they're using that as an example, but they're telling you to go ahead and circle the nouns, but you're still getting this left-wing propaganda stuff put into the kids' head.
I'm still trying to figure out how counting from 1 to 100 is left-wing propaganda, but that's
math. I'm talking English. You're talking math. I'm talking English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do we not have English Common Core?
Oh, that's true. Yes, we do have English standards. That's correct. But none of the English standards say, we're going to indoctrinate people into left-wing or right-wing things.
All right, Darren, I'm going to let you roll because you keep talking over him, and nothing's getting accomplished by that. Let's see. Brian, you're up in Fargo, Jay Thomas Show.
Thanks, Jay. This is Brian. I'm a Fargo teacher here. One of the things, Dale, that may be misconstrued there is that a lot of teachers participated in the survey that you're talking about. And that number is actually quite small when you take the entire population of North Dakota teachers. I myself have been teaching 39 years, and I'm retiring this year. And I did not participate in that survey. I'm not sure how come, but I'm one of the teachers in the state that did not participate. So it's somewhat skewed when you say that teachers are in favor of Common Core. In the staff that I work with, when I talk to them with Common Core, there are some that have very little knowledge to limited knowledge about that and how it's going to affect them. We're getting more as the days go by, but many of them have not heard about Common Core or very limited on that as it's coming down the pike. One of the things that DPI, I think, should do is try and put more information out into the teacher's hands with not a lot of knowledge and how that can be. I myself am entirely against the Common Core. I've been going through a lot of changes since I've started teaching, and they're all trying to fix something that I don't think is necessarily broken. In that when you talk about our educational system, I still think we have one of the best educational systems in the world. Can we fix some things? Absolutely. But the standards that you're talking about, some of them are absolutely terrific. And some of the teaching styles that are going to that are absolutely horrible. And everybody can bring out examples of good and bad on that. The thing about the ACT that you mentioned, in the state of North Dakota, and I'm not sure if you're a North Dakota resident, that ACT is not a national test that students have been taking for a long time. It was recently passed in state legislative that we would provide funds for our students to take the test. But in my early days of teaching, it was up to the parents and the child if they wanted to take the ACT test and go on to further education. So to use that example as that we take a national test, yeah, we do now. But it wasn't, and it still is not necessarily a true, accurate picture of the child, especially for those that are going to go to military or some other option after school. And the other thing that I wanted to ask is, and make sure that people understand, the testing that is going on right now is simply field testing to see that schools have the proper equipment and if the questions need to be tweaked. And to me, that's an experiment when you talk about the questions. See if the equipment works? Yeah, that's not a problem. Go and see if you have the right internet connection, right equipment. If you don't, will the DPI give school districts extra money to change your equipment, or is that up to the district to fund that? And my last question, you absolutely cannot answer. It really belongs to your state DPI. She's a Republican. I'm a Republican. Our state Republican Party and the National Republican Party are against the Common Core. My question to her, which you can't answer, is why is she not? I'll end with that.
I guess I'd like to address that last question first. Your basis for saying that the state Republican Party is against Common Core is a resolution that was approved at the state Republican convention in Minot. Now, I attended that convention, and this is how that resolution was approved. It was part of a package of more than 50 resolutions that dealt with, frankly, every subject under the sun. And these resolutions were printed. They were put on delegates' chairs. Very few delegates, in my experience, even read them. And then they were approved by a voice vote, which was not unanimous, by the way, after no debate on any of the resolutions. Now, I was at the convention, so I know that this is the case. And I don't think that a resolution against Common Core that is passed in that way can be legitimately used to say, yes, the North Dakota Republican Party is against Common Core. I mean, the whole process by which that resolution was adopted was so kind of sloppy and non-representative that I don't think that you can use it to make the argument that North Dakota Republicans are against Common Core.
Sir.
Now,
sir.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I've been involved in politics for most of my political life here. And again, I'm 63. And I've been involved in the political party process, both at the state and national level. And you're trying to tell the Jay Thomas audience that it's a sloppy method, the way the political parties put together, and I would disagree with you. The resolutions have to go in front of the resolution committee. They vet those then to determine which ones to accept and which ones to reject. After they have vetted those, they put the package together, and yes, you're right. They pass those out to the members. They can, if they choose to read through those. Many times they will go by what the party committee has vetted out as that this is good for us. And yes, many times the vote is a voice vote. Sometimes it's who can shout louder. That's the political party process that our country has gone through. It's what the Republicans do. It's what the Democrats do. But we assign that to a group of our membership to vet those resolutions.
That's true.
So
that's true.
To lead
true,
the
sir.
audience to believe that a group kind of threw some stuff on there, it went through. That's not true. That's not true.
That wasn't what I was
process.
trying to imply. What I was trying to say, and what I think I did say, is that the delegates in the main at the Republican convention were not familiar with the resolution. And you mentioned the vetting of it, and sir, I'll just put this in, that the anti-Common Core resolution was vetted so very carefully that there were 2 paragraphs in that resolution that were the same. I mean, very elementary proofreading would have prevented that.
That would have been the committee. That would have been the committee that could have changed that.
Gentlemen,
that's true, and that's true, and they did such a poor job putting that resolution together. I mean, it was like, if you have blocks of copy that are repetitive in a piece of paper and then try to argue that it's, vetted so carefully by someone, I don't think that argument washes. And in any case, even if it had been carefully vetted and not sloppily put together, I don't think that you can take a vote amongst, a group of 50-plus resolutions on any number of subjects and then conclude that every delegate in the Republican State Convention goes along with the Republican Party view of every one of those resolutions. That's
all right, gentlemen. I got to cut this conversation up because I got to take a break. A lot of emails, and I apologize. I can't get to them all. One coming from a teacher. Jay, I teach in North Dakota, and I'm scared where this whole Common Core is taking us. All right, Leah. Another Leah. I know you've been waiting for a long time, Leah. I'm gonna get you in here and try to make it as quick as possible. You're up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Hey, I just got a quick comment here. It might go into a question, but let's see how it goes. But I just think it's really telling how we keep hearing that people that are against Common Core, weird fringe movement, such a small group of people, which is just not true. There are people all over the state, thousands of people that know about this, that are against it. There's email lists. Just go look on Facebook. We are an age of technology. Look on Facebook, the Stop Common Core North Dakota group. It has a huge amount of members. Anywhere I go, people are constantly talking about this. I'm talking to legislators. I'm talking to teachers. People don't like it.
Do you think the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction just doesn't have their head wrapped around about on how many people are against this?
I think they know, but I think they'll trivialize it by saying weird fringe movement, small amount of people.
Dale, I'll let you.
Just look at the numbers. Just look at the numbers. This is not a state issue. This is a national issue. Well, how many people nationally are trying to stop it?
Yeah, I see. Somebody just sent me a thing. There's a Facebook page called Bad Arse Teachers Association that has 45,000 members on it, and they want their goal is to get Common Core out. Dale, I'll go ahead and let you respond to Leah.
Yeah, she's Steve Cates' daughter. He was an earlier caller on the show. It gives you kind of an idea of the the smallness of the network here, that people got their relatives calling in. But the thing here is that I do believe, if you look at the Stop Indie Common Core on Facebook, it's basically a small group of people talking to each other, and I think that we have a very good idea of the number of people who are really against Common Core, and it's a small number. If there was the groundswell against Common Core that this woman and earlier callers have claimed, this issue would have come up in the last legislative session. These standards have been in effect for a year. They were in effect during the 2013 legislative session, and there was not the legislators then knew that these standards were coming. Wayne Sandstead approved them. And was there a peep about Common Core in the last legislature? The answer is no. I covered the legislature. I know this, and anyone who looks at the number of bills introduced and looks at what the subjects of these bills are will not see anything about Common Core. Now, if there was a groundswell against Common Core, such as these people were talking about, that would have come up in the last session. It didn't. Now, it is going to come up in this next session. I'm confident of that. And I'm also confident that when that does, that these folks who are railing about Common Core will be exposed as a rather small and politically insignificant group.
Lee, appreciate the phone call. One quick one, and then we got to roll and wrap things up. Betty, go ahead. You get the last say, and you've got to make it quick, Betty.
Sure. This is just a government takeover of our children's privacy. And I'd like to say, if anybody wants to know the truth, they can go to the Fargo Kelly Inn on Main Avenue this Friday night at 7 o'clock, and they can hear Duke Testa.
And Duke will be out Thursday. I believe he's out in your neck of the woods, Dale. Thursday night as well.
We've actually invited him to tour public schools in Bismarck and Fargo so that he actually could give an idea of what it is that he's talking about. I don't know whether he'll
take you up on
that.
Dale, I mean, man, we spent a lot of time on this today.